This universe is not just a stage. Every moment, every encounter, every emotion follows a law. We live within that flow, and now we begin to uncover its truth together. Welcome to the law of the universe, where your consciousness begins to awaken.
To embrace all things. The true practice of the way question. In the course of our spiritual study, we observe that persistent attachments, rigid thinking, conflicting emotions, and contradictions in perception often stem from the intertwined influences of our past lives, ancestral karma, and personal destiny. This suggests that each individual may require a unique approach to learning. As referenced in the text, the journey of cultivation and spiritual discipline unfolds over periods of 3, 7, and 10 years, requiring continual self-reflection and internal breakthroughs. In this context, what is the proper attitude or inner posture that will allow one to remain steady and unwavering? If there is a more effective way to become free from deeply ingrained attachments, emotions, thought patterns, beliefs, and habits, and to clearly recognize our inner core, it would greatly aid us in our practice. Answer. A sacred parent is not someone who exists solely for their own children, but someone who embraces all members of society as their own and lives in service to them. This refers to a person who, with great realization, dedicates their life to nurturing the whole of society, and thus earns the title of a holy figure, an embodiment of parental care on a societal scale. In the future, the world will inevitably call for more individuals to assume this sacred role. Living solely for one's biological children is part of a natural karmic progression, but true growth leads one to transcend this and live as a parent to society. Just as men study and train in the way, so too do all of us. Today, cultivation is not confined to the mountains. One can practice the way while engaging in everyday life, even while running a humble noodle shop, attentively receiving the words and energies of the people who pass through. Cultivating the way is not merely about physical practice. It is about accepting and absorbing every environment and situation life presents. Enlightenment arises not from selective absorption but from embracing all experiences, even those we perceive as unpleasant or unworthy. Every word, every encounter, even insults, are forms of energy. Rejecting them out of personal preference blocks growth. True practitioners must absorb everything, just as Avalokiteshvara listens to all cries of the world without discrimination. Only then can true insight arise. If one only sees and hears what is deemed good, nothing new can be created. But if one embraces all, with gratitude and openness, truth will eventually take shape within. Thus, refrain from judgment or complaint. Accept everything as energy without labeling it right or wrong. This is the correct attitude. To judge what is right or wrong is only appropriate for those who have completed their studies. For us who are still learning, we must experience all things fully, without exclusion. Our physical body was given to us to receive material nourishment. Likewise, our soul needs immaterial nourishment, what we call spiritual sustenance. The emotions that arise through someone's words or expressions are forms of non-physical energy, soul food. Knowledge is food for the soul, but often rigid and weak. Truth, on the other hand, is like soft bread. It is absorbed deeply and fully into the soul. When truth enters, the soul is revived, and the person becomes equipped to handle any adversity with clarity and strength. Nothing should be dismissed. Even when a spouse speaks, their words should be heard carefully, not brushed aside. Blocking another's voice causes inner frustration. While in the past people married with few words, today communication is foundational. We must remember the early days of our affection, when listening and responding brought closeness. As time passes, if we begin to dismiss our partner's voice, a sense of spiritual suffocation arises. Words are expressions of the soul. If blocked, the flow of divine energy is hindered, and that leads to spiritual stagnation, eventually manifesting as illness. When frustrations accumulate and internal illness arises, people seek out shamans, monks, or churches. While spiritual leaders may offer momentary comfort, unresolved energy soon builds up again, and the person returns to illness. Our society must move beyond this patient state mentality. Religious institutions must focus not just on doctrine but on healing the actual suffering of individuals. If not, the number of spiritual patients will continue to grow. Through proper guidance and the study of true law, Junbyop, even frequent hospital visitors can become strong and whole. Most ailments stem from unresolved internal challenges. The person asking this question is already a practitioner. While many kinds of knowledge support cultivation, simplicity is essential to the path. True cultivation involves absorbing the words of others without filtering for right or wrong, allowing accumulated experience over time to crystallize into realization. As you continue to absorb and accept everything as it comes, your inner being gains substance. Eventually, that weight of experience leads to awakening, and from that, wisdom naturally flows. This is the essence of becoming a true practitioner. A true practitioner becomes a person whose answers emerge effortlessly from deep understanding, regardless of what is heard. This is cultivation, not remaining still, but willingly absorbing even uncomfortable or unpleasant words. When someone says something upsetting, think, there must be a reason. Accept it. This is the mindset of a true seeker. To nourish the soul, we must take in the words of others and transform them into spiritual food. We must not reject what comes, nor cling to what leaves. To cultivate the way is to absorb everything life presents. Through such constant absorption, insight naturally arises. When we listen, truly listen, the words of others become energy within us. If you have something to say to your spouse, say it. Even if they don't listen immediately, your words become internal energy and may surface in their thoughts later. This applies to parents, siblings, and friends. Don't force answers. Share what needs to be said, then return to your path. Over time, the movement of that energy will yield understanding. All human relationships are precious. Each one offers something needed. Silent prayer, for example, is not meant to produce answers, but to train us to simply receive. Practicing 100 days of silence helps one internalize this. Instead of speaking, you listen deeply. You become transformed. And in this, you come to understand what it truly means to cultivate the way. The true practice of the way. Absorb everything in our spiritual journey. We often want to avoid discomfort and cling to only the positive. But true growth begins when we stop filtering life and begin receiving all of it: joy, pain, confusion, and even others' unpleasant words. Master CHEON GONG teaches that every word, every emotion, and every situation carries energy. Even an insult is energy. Even frustration is nourishment for the soul. When we accept everything as it is, without judgment or rejection, we gain the strength to understand, transform, and heal. Cultivation doesn't only happen in the mountains. It happens in noodle shops, in conversations with family, in silent prayers. It's not about avoiding the world, it's about embracing it fully. The more we absorb, the more we understand. And one day, quietly, the answer comes from within. Master CHEON GONG's teachings summary. The proper attitude for cultivating the way. 1. Everyone needs a unique path of study. Each person carries the influence of past lives, ancestral energy, and their own destiny. These factors shape their attachments, thought patterns, and emotional challenges. Therefore, everyone needs a different way of learning and practicing. Cultivation often progresses through stages: 3 years, 7 years, 10 years, each requiring deeper self-reflection and personal growth. 2. You can cultivate the way in everyday life. You don't need to be in the mountains to cultivate the way. Even in daily life, while running a noodle shop or meeting customers, you can practice by absorbing the words and energy of others. 3. Accept everything without rejection. Don't push away uncomfortable words or situations. Everything you encounter is energy. When you absorb even the unpleasant, you grow. True enlightenment comes not from choosing only the good, but from receiving everything with an open heart. 4. Do not judge what is right or wrong when you are still learning. Your focus should not be on judging. Instead, experience as much as you can. Growth comes from openness, not from filtering experiences based on your preferences. 5. The body needs food. The soul needs meaningful words and emotions. Words, expressions, and emotions from others are spiritual nourishment. They are non-physical energy that feeds the soul. When you receive this nourishment, your soul becomes stronger, and you gain the ability to face life's challenges. 6. Value the words of your partner and loved ones. Words are expressions of the soul. If you block them, frustration builds up and can turn into illness. In relationships, remember the early days when you listened carefully and responded with sincerity. That is still needed now. When one can no longer speak freely, energy becomes blocked, and the soul suffers. 7. Every relationship holds a lesson. Your spouse, friends, family, all are precious teachers. If you need to say something, say it. Even if the other person doesn't respond right away, your words will remain as energy, and in time, they may reflect on it. Speak sincerely and return to your path. The answer will come later. 8. Silent prayer trains you to receive. The purpose of silent prayer is not to get answers but to learn to receive without resistance. If you practice silence for 100 days, suppressing your own urge to speak and simply listening, you will experience deep internal change and understanding. Conclusion. To cultivate the way is not to practice some special technique. It is to accept and absorb all that life brings, without judgment, without resistance. When you do this over time, inner energy builds up, and eventually, it transforms into awakening. You begin to understand deeply, and answers arise naturally, even without effort. This is what it means to walk the path of true cultivation. This is the story based on the above articles. Story. The one who absorbs everything. In a narrow alley of Seoul's Old Market, a small, time-worn noodle shop quietly turned on its lights at dawn. The faded sign and weathered flower pots outside gave little hint of the warmth within. But once the door opened, the aroma of broth and a sense of peace filled the air. The owner of the shop was a 53-year-old man named Yoon Tae-soo. Tae-soo had once been a mid-level manager at a large corporation. But 10 years ago, he suddenly quit and opened this modest noodle shop in the heart of the market. His friends and family were baffled. Why throw away a stable life? Is noodle soup really your passion? Tae-soo would only smile and say, I listen to people here. That's my real work now. His regulars included street vendors, taxi drivers, and local teachers. They came not only for the food but also to pour out their hearts. Some spoke of divorces, others of sick children, debt, or quiet loneliness. Tae-soo never interrupted. He never offered quick advice or judged. He simply stirred his broth and nodded gently as they spoke. But life hadn't spared Tae-soo either. His son had died in an accident in his early 20s, and his marriage had fallen apart under the weight of grief. For years, he was bitter and broken. Then, one day on the street, he overheard a single sentence that changed everything. Everything is energy. Don't block what comes, and don't chase what leaves. Something clicked. From that day on, Tae-soo decided to live differently. Instead of resisting the world, he would accept it. Gradually, he began to understand what it meant to cultivate the way. One afternoon, a rough-looking young man walked into the shop. His hair was a mess, his eyes sunken, his clothes worn. Without a word, he slumped into a chair and muttered, "One bowl of noodles." His voice was cold, almost hostile. When the food arrived, he barely tasted it before shouting, "This soup's bland. What kind of place is this?" The regulars stared, but Tae-soo didn't flinch. "I made it a bit lighter today," he replied calmly. "Would you like some soy sauce?" The young man blinked, surprised, and then nodded. He finished his meal in silence. As he stood to leave, he mumbled, "I haven't eaten in 2 days. Slept on the street last night." Tae-soo handed him a warm glass of water and smiled. "You're safe here, you don't need to fight." From then on, the young man returned now and then. At first, he stayed quiet. Then slowly, he began to talk, about dropping out of school, debt, being cut off from his family. Tae-soo listened. One day the young man asked, "Why do you listen like that? Why don't you ever get angry?" Tae-soo looked up from the stove. "I used to be full of anger. I blamed the world. But eventually, I saw the truth. It wasn't the world that hurt me, it was me pushing the world away. So now, I receive everything. Even harsh words. Even pain. It all feeds the soul." Word spread, and more people began visiting Tae-soo's shop. Some said, "The noodles are good, but the real warmth comes from the man behind the counter." Tae-soo didn't call it spiritual practice. He simply lived each day receiving what came. No judgment. No complaints. Just presence. One day, the young man came in smiling. I found a job, a cafe downtown, and I called my dad. We talked. Su placed a fresh bowl in front of him. That's good, he said. There will still be hard days. But if you keep accepting everything, someday, the answers will rise from within. Su is still there, behind the counter, cooking and listening. He doesn't call himself a sage. He's just someone who chooses to absorb everything life gives him. And he knows, somewhere, today, someone burdened with sorrow will open his door. And he will be ready to receive them. The end. What are you learning to accept in your life right now? Share your thoughts or experiences in the comments. Your story might help someone else on their path.